Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sharon Megdal. I'm director of the Water Resources Research Center at the University of Arizona. And it's my pleasure to welcome you today to our water webinar about Arizona Water Company's Sustainable Water Resources Strategy. I'd like to ask that you please keep yourself muted, and we'll note that the presentation will be followed by Q&A. Please use the chat function to enter your questions. We will be recording this and posting the recording and the slides to our website. All of those of you registered will get notification. It usually happens in about a day or day and a half after we complete the webinar. We will go for 75 minutes, so we'll go to 15 minutes after 1 o'clock Arizona time. We may end sooner, but we'll go as long as there are questions. I would like to respectfully acknowledge that the University of Arizona is on the land and territories of indigenous peoples. Today, Arizona is home to 22 federally recognized tribes, with Tucson being home to the Otham and the Yaqui. The university strives to build sustainable relationships with sovereign Native nations and indigenous communities through educational offerings, partnerships, and community service. I would like to bring your attention to some of the upcoming events that are on the slide being displayed. On November 12th, we're going to have a webinar on a former student's research while she was a PhD student on Indian water rights settlements in Arizona, an analysis of their history and potential future by Dr. Aminta Menjivar. And then we have a couple of co-sponsored events coming up with Native Voices in STEM. Also, unfortunately, we have a direct conflict on the 12th. For sure, ours will be recorded, and I think theirs as well. I'm not positive. And then on November 18th, we have Randy Hansen talking about conjunctive water management for sustainability. And then, of course, we want to remind you, we'll go to the next slide, to save the date for our April 14-15 conference on commercial and industrial water stewardship, large users, and our water future. Also want to remind you of our photo contest, which is taking a worldly view, this time a world of water. And through that QR code or going to our website, you can find information about entering that. So anybody who has photographs you'd like to share, we'd love to have you enter. And I would like to note that all of our activities and opportunities are noticed through the weekly wave, and you can also find where to subscribe for that, either through the chat, if Jesse's entering that, but also on our homepage of our website. So with that, I'm very pleased to introduce today's seminar, Arizona Water Company Sustainable Water Resources Strategy. And we have two distinguished speakers with us today. We have Fred Schneider, who's the president and chief operating officer at Arizona Water Company. And this year he's celebrating 18 years at the company. A registered civil engineer, Fred has worked in the water and wastewater industry for more than 30 years, where he's held various positions with local and national engineering firms. And he was born and raised in Southern Arizona. Fred, I didn't think I knew that. And is a proud parent of a daughter working toward a nursing degree at Northern Arizona University. I almost thought it would be University of Arizona, but we all have nursing schools, and we're all glad they're staying in the state to do their education. So that's all great. And then even better, they'll stay in the state to work, right, after they're done. And then also is Terri Sue Rossi, who's Vice President of Water Resources for Arizona Water Company. And they'll tell you about their system. A lot of people don't know about it, especially people in some of the major cities. And so I'm going to leave it to you to say how many people and how many systems you have. Terri Sue, whom I've known for a long time, has worked in water resources in Arizona since 1986, working at the Arizona Department of Water Resources, the Central Arizona Project, Arizona Water Banking Authority, other private water companies. I remember that some of that stint too, Terri Sue. And Terri Sue has a bachelor's degree from the University of Arizona and a master's degree from Rutgers University. Do you know that's my undergraduate alma mater? Did you know that, Terri Sue? So we share Rutgers as an alma mater. And she's also a musician and a mother. So we've got multi-talented people here, and pleased to have you with us. So I'll turn it over to you, Fred. I think you're starting. And thank you for being here with us, and thank all of you in attendance for being with us.
Awesome. Thank you, Sharon. Really appreciate that. And just as a little piece I left off, I am also a U of A alumni graduate. So a lot of roots back to Southern Arizona and Tucson. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for joining us today. So I will kick off the presentation, and then Terri Sue and I will be splitting the presentation back and forth, and then I will close. So a little bit about Arizona Water Company. Sorry, next slide. So well, I just kind of while you're getting that set up. So just for those who may not know, so we are the largest U.S. family-owned utility in Arizona. We don't have shareholders on the New York Stock Exchange or anything. We're also the second largest private water company in the state of Arizona. We have about 109,000 service connections, and those are kind of end of 2024 numbers. Been around a long time. We were established in 1955, and we are celebrating our 70th anniversary this year. We have 24 systems across the state. We serve in 30 different communities across 8 different counties, which can create quite a few challenges when you have that many systems and elected officials. We serve about 307,000 people. One of our strategies is to always stay involved and part of the community. And with that, we have 12 offices that are located throughout our water systems in the communities we serve. We pay about $3.1 million to the state and county in property taxes. We have 283 employees, and we pay about $23 million a year in salary. What we're going to talk about today is the Pinal Valley system. That is our largest water system and serves the communities of Coolidge and Casa Grande, and we've had a lot of growth in that area. So, yep. Yeah, I see this slide. Thank you. So just a little pie chart kind of giving an idea of where our water supplies come from. So in 2024, we pumped about 47,000 acre feet of water. As you can see, primarily groundwater, but we do have a very large CAP M&I allocation. Predominantly of that CAP allocation, it is water stored and recovered through various groundwater storage facilities and also an underground groundwater savings facility and an underground storage facility. Our Pinal Valley Recharge and Recovery Project, which is actually in the background behind me, is located in our Pinal Valley system out by Coolidge. We deliver some of our water through direct deliveries for potable uses and also for non-potable. Just to give you a summary, so we have about 10,884 acre feet for Pinal, 6,285 acre feet for AJ, and about 968 acre feet for a white tank system. The next slide. So when you have 24 water systems, nothing's simple and nothing's routine or the same. So we have systems in four different AMAs. So inside the Phoenix AMA, we serve the area part of Apache Junction and also Gold Canyon. We serve Superior and our white tank system, which is out in the Buckeye area. Within the Pinal AMA, we serve the communities of Casa Grande, Coolidge, a small community in between called Tierra Grande. As you head out to Maricopa, there's a community called Stanfield, and then Arizona City kind of sandwiched between. Inside the Tucson AMA, we serve Saddlebrook Ranch and the community of Oracle. And then we also have a system which actually predates statehood, but is in our actually newest AMA, the Douglas AMA in Bisbee, which I'll talk a little more about as well. Next slide. Oh, there we go. So kind of what I highlighted here is in our water systems in the AMAs, we've had just a phenomenal amount of growth since 2019. As you can see in our white tank system out in Buckeye, in the last 6 years, we've had about a 13% increase in growth. In Casa Grande and Coolidge, which is our largest system, about 6%, and down in Saddlebrook Ranch, Oracle, about 7%. So as I mentioned, our newest AMA and our actually oldest water system, which predates statehood, This area is unique in the sense that our water system actually splits between the Douglas AMA and the San Pedro watershed. And what's unique here is the old Bisbee area is the area that's inside the Douglas AMA, yet our well field is located outside. So this is a certificated-based system. Um, and as you know, moving water outside the AMA to inside the AMA can be challenging. And I'll get to some legislation we had to pass and work with legislatures pass as part of the creation of the AMA. Next slide. So kind of give you everybody a summary of our certificate base. So primarily, other than one water system, which I'll talk about a little later, all of our water systems are certificate-based systems. It's done us very well for a number of years, and you can see that in the slide to the left. This breaks down the number of CAGRD or Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District subdivisions. We have the second largest chunk of subdivisions from the GRD. If you look at number of lots, though, we actually have the largest number of lots which are covered by the CAGRD, with over 63,000 lots that are covered under the replenishment obligation. So we are the largest certificated-based provider in the Pinal AMA, and we are clearly one of the fastest growing areas in the Pinal AMA, both of which can create some challenges. Next slide. So I mentioned we have one system that is not not under certificate. We actually have a determination of an adequate water supply in our Pinetop Lakeside water system, which is up near Sholo. That system got its designation or determination back in 1973. Back in 73, we had about 1,800 connections. And as of the end of 24, we're almost 3,900 connections. So that area has experienced quite a bit of growth, but we've maintained that designation throughout that entire period of time. So kind of as I move into kind of where we are a little more now, so just a brief summary. So I took over as president of the company in June of 2019, and we've made a lot of progress since then. In 2019, we did not have a water resources department. The water resources responsibility was sort of split up. We had a water resources coordinator who primarily focused on making sure we could report property to all of our to ADWR for all of our annual reports. But basically, our past president, Bill Garfield, and myself split all the water resource responsibilities. So it was kind of a tag team approach. When one was busy, the other would pick up. So we really, as part of the transition from Bill's moving out of the president role and me stepping in, we were able to convince the board that we really need to have a larger emphasis and more focus on water resources. And with that, we needed to create a water resources department. And that is when we made the decision to move forward. And we actually hired Terri Sue Rossi, who's here today. And she is our very first water resources manager we've ever had at Arizona Water Company. What's amazing is that we've been around for 70 years, but we've only had a water resources department for 6 years. So it's phenomenal that it took that long for us to get to that point. But we also, as part of that, developed, when Terri Sue came on board, our very first water resources strategy. And one of the goals in developing this strategy, which you have in front of us, is we wanted to keep it a strategy that would kind of stand the test of time, that whenever we were going to be looking at water resources or water challenges, we could always come back to our strategy. Then that would keep us grounded in, what is the right thing to do? What do we do next? So we developed what you see here. So really, number one is obtain and maintain a diverse water supply. Sounds really simple. We like to keep things simple, but there's a lot packed into that. The second item is to promote the efficient use of those water supplies, which I'll have Terri Sue talk about. And then kind of under that, we want to make sure that we always rely on, we have water resources that we can rely on that are sustainable under a variety of operational conditions. We want to make sure we protect all those diverse supplies. As we know, those are all come under various risks or attack by various agencies or environmental concerns. We always got to make sure we protect those. And then, which we'll talk about more later, is we wanted to develop a system that provides an assured water supply under a variety of rules. And we developed all this back in 2019, so kind of keep that in mind. So next up, I'll turn up to Terri Sue to talk more about the efficient use of water supplies.
Okay, hopefully everyone can hear me. Is that true, Fred?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm going to just talk about the second strategy, and we're going to begin with that one first, just because it's a little bit quicker of a discussion. And we'll spend most of our time talking about the first point. But like what Fred said, we're in the process of developing we call it a demand management program. And now why is not this moving forward? This is disturbing. Oops, there it goes. There we go. And so we had a vision of creating a water conservation program that we've referred to as an integrated demand management program. And we could have done an off-the-shelf program. We could have done water use it wisely and spread that across our entire state, but we didn't feel that that was the best approach. We felt that we have these various water systems, and even within a single water system, we have different communities, and they are all very unique. They all have very different value systems. And we felt that it was very important that the conservation program itself reflected the values of those communities that we served. And so each of these programs, we began in April of 2021. We launched the program. The young woman in the center of the page, her name is Raluca Mihalcescu. She was our first water conservation specialist, and she really implemented all of this. And you can see that that's a very short time under which she went from no customers under an integrated demand management program to 90% of our customers. And so we began with Casa Grande. We consider it to be our flagship program, and then we just proceeded to implement other programs in all these other different areas. We begin with a comprehensive water use assessment, which evaluates all the service area characteristics. We also spend time figuring out what are these communities already doing, what are the things that Arizona Water Company was already doing, and we take the strengths of both the communities we serve and Arizona Water Company. We blend them together, and then we figure out what's missing, what's the extra special ingredients we need to add. We add those ingredients, and then we launch these programs. There's a wide variety of I'm going to call them kind of foundational elements. Each program has a public engagement program. Each program has a conservation-oriented rate structure. Each program has, of course, lost and unaccounted for water programs. Each program also has a Project Wet element to it. We love Project Wet. We also have a company-wide toilet rebate program. We have a company-wide free conservation kit program, and we also do commercial and industrial water efficiency audits. And I believe I saw Gary Woodard come on here. So we rely very heavily on Gary to do a lot of that work, not a lot of it, all of that work for us. And so we're also partnering with various entities in the community, including, for example, Kohler. Kohler has opened up a manufacturing facility in Casa Grande, and they are participating in our toilet rebate program by adding some additional money. So if someone wants to get a low flow Kohler toilet, there's some additional money that's provided. And so for anybody that lives in any one of our water systems, please get on our website and apply for a toilet rebate. And that includes the actual toilet, and it includes money for installation, and apply for a free conservation kit. And if you're with an HOA, live in an HOA in our area, give us a call and let's see if we can get your HOA on the deck to do the water efficiency audit. So the idea here, the reason we call it an integrated demand management program is because we see water conservation as a water supply. And so we are looking for the conservation program to reduce the amount of water people are using. And we recently completed an evaluation in Casa Grande that was our flagship program. You have to wait for a little while to get enough demand data to be able to evaluate the program. But I think the next slide is an overview of the evaluation that we conducted. So we have about 39,000 customers in 2024. We established a control group within those 39,000 customers. And this control group was made up of 17,000 customers who have been here since I think it was actually since 2018. The data that you see here starts in 2020 because the program was launched in 2021. So we went a year in advance of when it was launched. And so those customers are not just existing customers, those are actually accounts that have the exact same customer name in 2020 that they did in 2024. And so we did an analysis and we figured out, based on what the customers were using in 2020, what we could expect them to be using in 2024 had they remained at that same water use level. And then we also have, where you see on the left, you'll see 153,362. That was the average use per customer in 2020. And that has gone down. So you can see the dotted line has gone down to about 135,000. And overall, we believe that about the conservation program, the IDMP, is saving about 5,000, little over 5,000 acre feet. Now, whoops. I didn't show the control group total. But anyways, we did do a control group total. So we believe that going forward, this is a cumulative total, the 5,000 acre feet cumulative. On an annual basis, we believe that it's going to be saving about 1,366 acre feet per year. So I think from here, I turn it over to you, Fred.
I always find that quite amazing, and that's just one water system, and we have 24 total. So exciting things. So I'll talk a little more about our water resource goal for the obtaining and maintaining a diverse supply and how that ties into our assured water supply program that we've developed. So next slide. Always seems to be a little behind. And we don't use the Amazon Web Services, so it's not part of that whole issue.
Yeah, if it would help, Terri Sue, we do have a PDF of your presentation, if it would help to show that, but I think you're coming back, so I think we'll be okay.
Yeah. Just...
All right. So kind of a little history of some of the recent events. We're the largest certificated provider in the Pinal AMA. So kind of backing up in time and talking about how we got to where we are today. So the last certificate that was issued in the Pinal AMA was for the Walago Commercial Center. As you know, not all certificates are for residential. So this was a larger commercial project, required a certificate. So that one was issued in July 15th of 2011. That happens to be an R water system, but that was the last one issued in the entire Pinal AMA. We then had the last analysis of assured water supply in the Pinal AMA was issued August 10th of 2015. That also is in our Casa Verde water system. And what's not on here is which is kind of the canary in the coal mine. So in late 2015, we worked with a developer to submit an application for certificate of assured water supply for a project called Copper Mountain Ranch. What's unique about that is it never got denied, but it never got approved. And that is where we realized that we have a problem ahead of us. We weren't sure what it was, but we knew that the system wasn't operating as usual. So I want to say there are a lot of folks that were involved in what I'm going to talk about here. Being the largest certificated water provider, we were the largest impacted by what was happening. But by far, there's a lot of folks. So I want to start off that, Chairman Miller, who's on the Pinal County Board of Supervisors, is, I guess, not all heroes wear capes. Chairman Miller has been a large voice in the Pinal AMA on water issues. And when we kind of realized we had hit the wall and had problems, Chairman Miller stepped up. He convinced David Cook and the governor's office created an ad hoc committee on groundwater supply in the Pinal County. And there was a series of meetings that were held, which I'll get to next. From that, there was a Pinal AMA stakeholder group that was held or created. Chairman Miller chaired that. He had two co-chairs. Arizona Water Company was a co-chair, as well as Global Water. The two of us are probably the two largest water providers in the Pinal AMA. So the two of us stepped up and kind of supported Chairman Miller in all of his work and all of his efforts. And with that, we created a Pinal AMA groundwater modeling group. So that work went on from April of 2020 through September 2022. We spent a lot of time taking the department's model, trying to figure out what wasn't working, how we fix it, how we correct it. And we had a Matrix New World. Nathan Miller was phenomenal in helping us peel the onion back. We're not water modelers. He is, and he did a phenomenal job in helping us understand the inputs into the model and what might need to be corrected. Arizona Water Company funded a big chunk of that initial work. A bunch of developers and committee members stepped up and helped fund all that work. We made a lot of progress, but we began to realize what we really needed was not Arizona Water Company leading that effort. We needed somebody more regionally to lead that effort to keep us more independent. And with that, there's an agency in Pinal County called Pinal County Water Augmentation Authority. That agency makes up all the various cities in the Pinal AMA. You have Maricopa, Eloy, Casa Grande, Coolidge, Lawrence. You have two different irrigation districts, and then you have a member at large, and then you have a member that has a CAP right. That happens to be Arizona Water Company. You have a member that does not have a CAP right. That happens to be Global. And then you have Pinal County Supervisor, and that was Chairman Miller on the committee. So it made sense to turn it over to that agency and run with it. Again, folks stepped up and continued to fund that effort. And we worked on that for quite a while. So we realized that the Pinal AMA was officially closed by the department June 28th of 2021. That's when the department officially said there were no new determinations, designations, or certificates of assured water supply that would be issued. And then I think it all came to a head on 2023 when the Phoenix AMA got closed. I'll point out that during this full modeling effort, two things that became very evident to us at Arizona Water is that through this whole process, we had to achieve two things. We really can't just fix the model and go back to business as usual. We cannot have a race to the bottom and end up with another closed AMA, because the hole we're going to dig out of later is only bigger than the hole we have today. So we can't have another race to the bottom. We got to find a way through it. And we also needed a bridge. So we needed a way to get from where we were today as a certificated provider to where we needed to be as a designated provider, with a closed AMA and the financial challenges of moving from one to the other with the flip of a switch. That was really a difficult process. So we really been focused on trying to find a bridge. So just a few points on that. There was the Pinal stakeholder group meetings from December through June of 21. There were 17 different meetings that probably had 30 to 40 people in those meetings, kind of trying to find ways to get through this situation we found ourselves in. So while we were working on this, we realized we needed some breathing room, and we needed kind of a way to take a little of the pressure off. We had quite a few certificated lots within our area, so we could continue to grow and keep the community with new homes coming in, but we needed a little more flexibility. And the Pinal stakeholder group put forth some legislation which got passed in 2021, which achieved two things. It allowed new non-groundwater supplies like effluent to be added to a designation without the department having to go in and redetermine whether that designation was still valid. So we could add more supplies without having to validate the original designation. That was a big issue for a lot of folks that were designated providers. And then for folks that were certificated like ourselves, we need a little more flexibility. So a lot of these certificates were old. They may have had larger lots. They may have had larger water demands based on the department's model. But we needed a way to maybe get back into smaller lots. So we needed a way to change the lotting, move lots, add lots, as long as we didn't increase the water demand, what was in the original certificate. So those are two things that gave us some breathing room to allow the communities that we all serve to grow. And then we focused quite a bit on just going forward, some legislative changes that really got us to where we are today. So we passed, there was Senate Bill 1181 that allows a certificated provider who moves to a designated provider and takes on that CAGRD obligation to phase in the GRD cost from the landowner and the property tax over to the utility to be paid over a 20-year period. So that allows a 10-year to stay on the taxes, and then the following 10 years allows those dollars to move off the tax books onto the utility at 10% per year for 10 years. Unfortunately, in this bill, at the sacrificial lamb was the Pinal AMA. So this bill got passed in 2024, but it did not include the Pinal AMA. Next slide. So we've been focused on some other bills, some other successful legislation that got passed by that's been helpful. We supported 2368. This is the one that authorizes us to continue to pump water from our wells that predate statehood from outside the Douglas AMA to inside the Douglas AMA for Old Bisbee. That was critical for the creation of the Douglas AMA. We had House Bill 2753, which was just recently passed. This is the groundwater replenishment, which allows what I described for the Phoenix AMA to be used in the Pinal AMA. The logical thing would have been to be included in the first one, but we had to come back and add that one later. And then the oh, then the second one that recently passed, which was fantastic for folks, was the creation of the groundwater savings credits, or referred to as the ag to urban transition. So it allows a groundwater savings credit to be issued for farmland that's retired in the Phoenix, Tucson, or Phoenix and Pinal AMA. For Pinal, we got 1 acre per acre as a transition. And then the Phoenix AMA got 1.5. And with all the ag land in Pinal, that's a huge resource to jumpstart growth, but also provides a groundwater savings to the aquifer. Next slide. So we talked about a bridge, and we really been pushing for a process by which we could get from where we were as a certificated provider to where we needed to be as a designated provider. And the governor's office began a informal rulemaking process that went on for a few months in early 2024 for the alternative pathway to designation of assured water supply. We saw that as a unique opportunity to create that bridge to get from where to where we are. That draft rules were released in August 1st of 2024. The Governor's Regulatory Review Council, or the GRC, had a series of meetings that I listed there, which ultimately led to the ADOS rules being approved in November of 2024. So not even quite a year ago. Arizona Water Company and all of our partners down here in the Pinal AMA, we rallied everybody. The Pinal Partnership was a big part of that. Supervisor Miller. We didn't realize all the friends we had. So we ended up having 428 submissions to the Governor's Regulatory Review Council. Of those, 55 were either letters of opposition or letters of concern. 323 of those were letters of support. But I would point out that of those numbers, we had, 323 letters of support, and 90% of those or so came from the Pinal AMA. We wrote letters to city officials, wrote letters to businesses, and really rallied everybody. And it was amazing the number of folks that wrote letters of support for the Pinal AMA and ultimately helped get those rules passed. So with that, there's kind of 4 entities that have been primarily focused on the ADAS. There's 2 of us, EPCOR and Arizona Water Company on the private side. And then up in the Phoenix AMA, we have Buckeye and Queen Creek. So unfortunately, but good for EPCOR, they were able to beat us the punch in the application. They got their application submitted November 25th of 2024. And then we got our application submitted December 16th of 2024. EPCOR got their designation order executed October 7th, just a few weeks ago. And we expect ours before the end of the year, probably sometime in November. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Terri Sue, to talk more about what the designation looks like.
Right, so we are in the sort of the final throes of finishing up our designation. And this is the designation area as it's been defined. There's a kind of a lot that goes behind it, but that gray area that you see and our water lines over the top of it are the designation area itself. The black line that you see is our water planning area. So for those of you who are familiar with how a designation works, as your water lines expand, then your designation itself expands, but it isn't, it's not our entire CCNN at this stage. And of course, it's stopped again.
You need to click on that application probably, and then it'll highlight that application again.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Thank you for that tip. So just some highlights on the numbers for the designation. And again, we're in the process of finalizing these, so these might not end up being the exact numbers, but I think we're in the last round of numbers. We have a total physical availability of water supply of being about 54,000 acre feet. About 43,000 of it is in groundwater, and 10,884 acre feet of it is in CAP water. We have not included effluent in the designation because we're going to be bringing that in on a subdivision by subdivision basis. So for those of you who are familiar with how designations work, you as time goes on, if you add new water supplies, that comes in later. It doesn't have to be on the day that you actually get your designation. So as we bring in new subdivisions, and all of our new subdivisions and all of our new, actually all our new connections, not even just subdivisions, will need to bring a new water supply, or they'll need to pay a water availability fee, which I'll talk about in a minute, which we will use then to purchase non-groundwater supplies. So at the end of each year, we'll probably put that all together, do an update, and expand the designation in that manner. Oh, the designation itself is going to be a term of 10 years. I think that's pretty standard right now for anybody who has a CAP subcontract. So here's some important numbers within our designation. We talked about the physically available groundwater, which is the 43,000 acre feet. Probably should have put the 10,884 acre feet of CAP on this chart. We also have an extensive groundwater allowance and extinguishment credit balance, which is about a little over 31,000 acre feet. If you don't work in the Pinal AMA, you may not be familiar with how the groundwater allowances work here. But we have what they call perpetual groundwater allowances, and we have what they call perpetual extinguishment credits. And so as a part of this process, the ADAS process, these entitlements were made whole with the exception of extinguishment credits, and there's some bumpers on the extinguishment credits. We're also receiving a groundwater allowance for legacy pumping, which would be anything that's outside of a certificate of assured water supply. But in total, those equal about 31,000 acre feet. And the significance of this is that this is what allows us to continue to pump groundwater without actually having to pay a replenishment fee at this time. In addition, the assured water supply rules provide for an incidental recharge, which is 4% of whatever your demand is in a particular year. And the 1266 just represents what it would be in the last year of the designation, which would be in 2035. So I spoke about a water availability fee. So in our designation, any new connection, irrespective of whether it's residential or non-residential, subdivided or not, will be paying a water availability fee. And we are in the process of negotiating with sellers as we speak. and pulling together a blended rate for a water availability fee. The cost will be based on market prices. The existing assured water supply certificates will be exempt from the water availability fee because they already have physical availability and they already have a groundwater allowance to cover that. And again, it'll affect all of the types of connections we have. It doesn't matter what type of connection. And all large developments can secure and convey water supplies to us in lieu of paying the water availability fee if that's what they desire to do. So I'm going to just run through how an example of a new subdivision would work, and it could be a subdivision or it could be a project, an industrial project, or whatever. But it's a development of 300 acre-feet of demand. So the way the assured water supply rules work is when you bring in a new alternative water supply, 25% of that has to be used to offset the groundwater pumping of the existing customers. So in our system, we're going to make 400 acre-feet of our existing CAP water available to the subdivision temporarily, and we will take 25% of that and apply that against our existing customers. The remaining 300 acre-feet, then they will have to bring the non-groundwater supplies in. And so if they are capable of bringing in, say, for example, effluent and offsetting that demand, then we would reduce that number down to, say, 200. So we go from the 300 acre-feet down to the 200 acre-feet. If they had ag to urban, for example, then they would be able to bring in some physically available groundwater through the ag to urban program. And then, or if they have surface water rights, like say Gila River water right, or something like that, or they have purchased their own long-term storage credits. Whatever, if they have done that, then we'll further reduce that 200 acre-feet down. Whatever is remaining is the amount of water that will be assessed the water availability fee at the current market prices. Then when we collect that money from them, we will immediately turn around and purchase those credits or purchase whatever supply we have in our portfolio at that time. That does not preclude the water availability fee does not cover the infrastructure that would be required. So they would still have to build all the water lines. They still have to build any new well capacity. And initially, the bulk of our existing portfolio will be long-term storage credits stored at the Hohokam Irrigation District. So people will be building, they'll be paying for wells that will be built inside the area of hydrologic impact associated with that particular project. Okay, so now I think I'm going to actually turn it back over to you, Fred.
So on this one, I'm going to focus a little bit on.
Fred needs to unmute.
Yeah, Fred, you got muted and unmuted in there.
Got it. All right. So thank you for my presentation. The last part, I'm going to focus a little more on here, item number 3, which is our participation in Bartlett Dam. And next slide, I'll kind of explain where that focus comes from. So in the beginning, we had talked about this pie chart here, where about 60% of all of our water that we deliver comes from groundwater. So if you go back to one of our goals is to obtain and maintain a diverse water supply. Part of that is we want to reduce our reliance on groundwater. We want to make sure that we have a long-term sustainable supply. So with that, move to the next slide. So we're trying to reduce that 61% to a lower number. So there's been a lot of news for those of you who may not know, it's been in the news quite a bit. There's been the Verde River sedimentation study, which was looking at how to restore the capacity behind Horseshoe Dam because of all the sediment that's accumulated. There's been a series of studies that are done, and we're now in the feasibility study. The alternatives that are looking at, I'm going to focus here on these numbers, the item in orange, which would be alternative number 2. So all the numbers that are going to be here are going to be based on that alternative. So there are 24 organizations that are on the steering committee. Some are voting, some are non-voting members. So there's 24 organizations. Primarily, these are all municipalities. There are a couple of irrigation districts, but there are only 2 private water companies that are participating in this study. One of them is EPCOR, the other one is us. My opinion of that is the Corporation Commission can be difficult to get some of these costs recovered in. And the reason why is to get recovery of costs, the Corporation Commission, you have to prove that it's used and useful before you can ask for recovery. So here, the way this is set up, the funding will be done, maybe a decade before the dam is being built. So that's probably why you have a lot less private entities that are in there. But we're in there. We are looking at various supplies that can reduce our groundwater pumping. So what we're looking at right now, our potential allocation is about 10,405 acre feet. That is of capacity behind the dam. There's a ratio in the model of how many acre feet you can accumulate on an overall basis annually based on the predicted runoff of the dam. There are Verde River is very flashy. So some years you get large storm events, other years you get smaller events. So they're expecting that 10,405 acre feet of capacity to produce about 2,973 acre feet of yield. And these are our numbers based on what's in orange. I just want to clarify. So there's been a lot of, I guess in the news, a lot of talk that, we're going to raise Bartlett Dam. I want to be a little clearer of what's happening or what's being proposed up on the Verde River at Bartlett Dam. So what you have now, which is a graphic, these are created by SRP. They're great graphics. So what you have now is the zigzag line kind of in the middle. That's the existing Bartlett Dam. What they're looking to do is then in that kind of angled shape will be the new dam. They're going to build that just downstream of the existing dam, and it'll be taller. Once that dam is built, if you go to the next slide, once that dam is built, they will breach the old dam and inundate it, and then create a larger reservoir, creating the capacity on the previous slide. This isn't anything new. Those of you that have been around for a number of years or up in the Phoenix area, there was the Waddell Dam that formed Lake Pleasant. The Bureau of Reclamation came in and built a new dam, the new Waddell Dam. They then breached the old dam and inundated the old dam. And that is what we have now as Lake Pleasant. So what happened in the West Valley of Phoenix for Lake Pleasant on the Our Free River is the exact same thing that's being planned and contemplated on the Verde River for Bartlett Dam. One thing I want to point out, so the water used for Bartlett Dam can only be used to support existing demands or to offset your groundwater pumping. It cannot be used for any growth. So where this plays key is this mechanism and this project here isn't for for growth or inclusion in our designation per se. Is to take that 61% reliance on groundwater and start to ratchet that down over time and get that into what we think is a more manageable number, less than 60%. So we have a lot of different pieces that are been going on in our water resource strategy and plan. We talked about on some of the earlier slides, we're looking at various groundwater basins we can move water from. So just trying to find every way we can in which to bolster our water supply and stick to the core of water resource strategy is of making sure we have a diverse portfolio, we're using it wisely, and that the water we have can stand up to the test of time through various regulatory strategies.
Oh,
So that
great.
with that, Sharon, that kind of concludes our presentation.
That's great. And Terri Sue, I think I'll ask you to stop sharing, and so we can spotlight the two of you for questions. And just to remind everybody, this always comes up, this presentation is being recorded and the slides will be posted within a day and a half or so. So be on the lookout if you registered for this yourselves for an email to that effect. We do have some questions in, and I have some that will, I think, can build upon some of these questions if others don't come in. There's a couple, Fred, that and Terri Sue, that come in and kind of are connected to some of the other uses, the non-municipal uses of groundwater in the area. And so I'm going to start with that because the first one was the first one that came in, but I'm going to kind of leapfrog a little bit. And Charles Stack asked, is there adequate water supply for Pinal's growing dairy industry? That you have several dairies there, and gave some names of that. And then there was another question later on about are canals in the Pinal AMA lined or not lined? Now, you're not providing water to the dairies, right? And you're not providing water to agriculture. But I wonder if maybe I could kind of translate those questions into just generally one about kind of what the groundwater situation is looking like generally. I have to admit, I really appreciate your slides. We never had an official ending of the stakeholder group for groundwater, and I don't follow the Pinal County Water Augmentation Authority. So now I know where things are happening, and that's really good. And I'm glad to see that it's continued on. But maybe, and then there was another question about which groundwater model was relied on for these determinations. So maybe if you could just spend a couple of minutes, if possible, talking about who was doing the modeling and to what extent, there are concerns or not about what's going on to the extent and then I'll get on to more, municipal water system questions.
So I'll just start off and maybe Terry Sue turn to you. So one thing I probably should have included is when the DWR model got released and they kind of issued their notice that there's unmet demand in the Pinal AMA. There was an 8.2 million acre foot shortfall of unmet demand. That was primarily ag. I don't remember the exact number. Terri Sue might. A little over 1 million acre feet of that was M&I usage. And when we were updating the model, our focus was to reduce the M&I demand and eliminate it. But the department was not asking us to resolve the unmet demand related to ag. So I meant to clarify that in my study or presentation. So Terri Sue, I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you, Fred. So one of the questions I think was, is there enough water for the dairy industry, and are all the canals lined in the Pinal AMA area? Not all canals are lined in the Pinal AMA area. Certainly the CAP is lined. The Santa Cruz or the Santa Rosa Canal is lined. The ones that are not lined are some of the ones located within the skid, and they have a program for lining them, but there are still a number of them that are not lined. But I am certainly not an expert on that. And so if you wanted to,
And skid is San Carlos
high level,
Yeah, San Carlos Irrigation District is skid
Yes.
for some people who may not be. And that's good. I just wanted to get those out of the way because I didn't expect you to give a long answer about that, but I just wanted to give the courtesy of those who asked the question to get it
Yeah,
out.
and on the dairy industry, the dairy industry relative to the whole is relatively small. But there was some unmet demand associated with the dairy industry within the model. The model that we relied upon was the model that the Department of Water Resources released in 2019. Those of you who are familiar with the modeling know that there are two models. There is I'm going to call it the hydrologic model, and then there's the assured water supply model. So it's the assured water supply model, which is kind of this module that you put over the top of it, has all the assumptions about the water use and where that water is being pumped and what particular cell. That's the model that we didn't mess with the actual hydrologic model. We just dealt with the assured water supply model, which is what the department had specifically asked the stakeholder group to do. So we hired Nathan Miller, and we formed a team between Westwater, Nathan Miller, and Arizona Water Company. We formed a team and we went through the process of going through the entire model and resolving the unmet demands associated with, as Fred pointed out, the municipal sector. Actually, there's a municipal and the industrial sector, so that would have included, I take back what I said earlier, that did include the industrial water users. It included the assured water supply demands, which those were and much of that was not demand that had actually been realized or had even been approved as certificates. About 1 million acre feet of that was, as I recall, in analyses, so they didn't even have actual determinations. The other thing that we had to resolve for was any storage and recovery of credits. So we resolved basically for everything except the agricultural portion. The agricultural portion of the 8.2 million acre feet was about 5.5 million acre feet. So that was the model that we used, and we were able to show that you could meet all of the unmet demands associated with those aspects of the model. So subtract the 5.5 from the 8.2, so something less than 3 million acre feet. And that's what we were asked to do. And we were told that if we could do that, then we would have met that standard for moving on. And we did in fact do that. And then there were some issues that they had subsequent to us to that run and wanted us to redo that. And that's when, as Fred pointed out, we all kind of realized that it wasn't really appropriate for Arizona Water Company to be leading those efforts. And we turned the baton, gave the baton off to the Pinal County Water Augmentation Authority. And then they, can't remember what the date was, but they recently submitted a new version of the model that resolved all those issues. And once again, we've demonstrated that all the unmet demands can be met. In the course of doing that, and if you're tracking these things, you know that this kind of happened in the Phoenix AMA, and we knew that this would be the trajectory, was that the next bar that would be set was going to be, if we can get through that mousetrap of the unmet demands, which we were able to do, the next bar was going to be the depth to water. And we have not resolved the depth to water issue in the Pinal AMA. It's not pervasive. It's really isolated down in the Eloy area. And the department never came out and said we had to resolve that, but effectively they did. And then all of this kind of moved up into the Phoenix AMA. When it moved up into the Phoenix AMA, it was not as significant of a problem from a magnitude perspective. But from a political perspective, I think it became a much more significant issue. And I think at that point, there was more incentive to try to resolve this problem in a way that there could be some movement forward, but still an acknowledgement that, that this is a limited resource and we have to learn to manage it properly. And I think that was the birth of the alternative designation of assured water supply. And I think from our perspective, and Fred said this a little bit earlier, was we have no intention to have a race to the bottom again. We do not want to end up where we were in 2008 with 234 assured water supply determinations located in places that people may not want to actually build because it was so easy to get those determinations. So we felt that this was a good balance of putting enough of a responsibility on the development side so that we would not end up in a situation like that again, which is why these folks are going to be paying water availability fees. And I will just add that those water availability fees are significant. And they are not a token amount of money. They are a significant amount of money.
Well, Terri Sue, that's a great overview. And I just wanted to clarify one thing you said. Oh, yes, we did include industrial. So that would have included the dairies' use of water. And I just wanted to note that because not everybody online will necessarily know that the water used for the cows is actually an industrial use. We're not talking about the water used to grow the alfalfa, but the cows. So you are saying that was included in that.
Yeah, it was. And something that I should make clear, which is sort of an inside baseball thing, is that when we say, in the water resource business, when we say industrial users, we're talking about entities that have their own right to pump groundwater, and they pump that groundwater for a variety of uses. And it could be anything from cows for dairies, it could be mines, it could be golf courses. So there's a number of different, anybody who has a non-irrigation grandfathered right would qualify, or even a general industrial use permit would qualify as an industrial user.
Yeah,
we're not talking about an industrial customer of a municipal water provider.
Right. And in fact, that would be in your commercial class. And I want to put in a plug for our conference because our April conference will be looking at commercial and industrial, because industrial doesn't include those big commercial users like chip manufacturing plants and so forth. They're in a municipal system. So thank you for clarifying that. But I do want to, when you talk about the race to the bottom again, and I apologize, I'm going to get back up, Paul, to your question in a moment. But when you talk about the situation where you were able to kind of resolve, offset, or show by changing assumptions that the municipal groundwater demand could be met, that's still within the bucket of the Pinal AMA, right? And so there is a question from Mike Carpenter about the Pinal AMA does not have a requirement for reaching steady state or safe yield. How does that jibe with your work? Because you can show things on paper, but if you've got other pumping going on, that could take away from what you're expecting to be there. So, he asked the question, you don't have a safe yield balance. Are you confident that the groundwater will be there, that you're now showing in the model will be there?
So I think that if you talk to people who work in the Pinal AMA, they would tell you it doesn't really matter what the Pinal AMA goal says. We have a safe yield goal in the Pinal AMA through the Assured Water Supply Program. So for example, all new development that comes into our area will be bringing a non-groundwater supply. So we're really just talking about now managing the existing groundwater demand and pushing it downward. And every time we bring in a new water supply, 25% of that will be cut over into to offset our existing groundwater demands. We are a part of the Bartlett Dam, which can only be used to offset existing demand. So 100% of that water supply will be used for that purpose. So we may not have a goal that specifically says safe yield, but if you really look at the goal, there's kind of two parts of it. And the second part essentially says that you will preserve enough groundwater for a sustainable future for your municipal and industrial demands. So we view it as a safe yield goal.
Okay, now Paul asked a question, Paul Bergelin, I'm not sure how Paul pronounces his last name. Before you mentioned this, Fred, when you were talking about Bartlett Dam and the used and useful, but I do want to go to his question as asked. Private utilities face different requirements in financing their operations and water acquisition compared to municipal providers. Can you discuss how the Arizona Corporation Commission's oversight and requirements impact your utility, particularly when it comes to developing and acquiring supplies to diversify your portfolio? And you touched on it, but I wanted to ask the question so you could amplify or say more if you wish.
Yeah, it makes it a challenging environment. So the way the commission works, everything's historical. So you don't go in and get pre-approval to go build something like you may go to a mayor and council and say, we want to build a new water plant. They approve it, you start getting funding. We basically have to go build it. And then we come back in the commission to seek recover those costs and justify the work we did. So in the Bartlett Dam issue, that is a concern of ours. If we back up a few decades, so when CEP came in, there was a variety of allocations provided to municipalities and private water companies. In the end, a lot of private water companies gave up their allocation because they couldn't achieve the use and useful criteria in which to get recovery. Thankfully, our company had the forethought and the wisdom to hold onto those allocations and find a way ultimately to make it use and useful, which wasn't an easy process. But I think one thing the commission has learned that from a water rights and water resources standpoint, that use and useful tests may not always be the right way to do that for these kinds of projects. An example was the Palo Verde nuclear power plant. So when that facility got built, there wasn't a use and useful test. There wasn't $1 billion invested, and you go to get recovery. There they sought and received the authority to put money onto a customer's bill while they were building the facility and get proper treatment to make sure they could do that. And we see Bartlett Dam being the exact same way. So I think between the Palo Verde facility and the lessons learned on the CAP water that was given up by private water companies, we think those two are the poster child to go into the commission and show them that this is a viable project. The reason why you got 20 municipalities that are after this and only 2 private water companies is this use and useful measurement. And we think there's useful examples in which how we can get past that. And we feel fairly confident that we can educate the commission and convince them that this is a good resource to make investments in for the future.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I even go back to the Corporation Commission and being on there when capital in advance of construction or whatever you could recover. So I love the fact that you're connecting to that. It makes a lot of sense, but I was never an elected commissioner. I was a commissioner, but not an elected one, and I'm not one. So what I think doesn't mean anything.
Well,
Gary Woodard.
and I just wanted to add, Sharon, that, having been doing this for a very long time, when I first started working for the Department of Water Resources, there were a lot of discussions with the commission about just recovering the costs of conservation programs. And I think that has been a bugaboo for private utilities for some time. But what I would like to, if it's okay for me to let folks know
Yep.
what happened to us. So in our Eastern Group rate case, which was approved in last July, that was the first time a significant, like a full-blown comprehensive conservation program, which we discussed earlier, our integrated demand management program, was I guess you'd call it litigated through a rate case. And we got virtually all of what we asked for. I would say we came like $14,000 short of the entire budget that we were asking for. And then we went to the Northern Group and got 100% of it. And we are very hopeful that we will get the same consideration in our Western Group. And I think that has really paved the way for a lot of the other private utilities who have been concerned about moving forward with their conservation programs, that has opened up that door. So I think we really have like what Fred says, I think we have a very different commission today and a different way of looking at water resources.
Well, that's great. I mean, congratulations on that. Gary Woodard asked about, Terri Sue, your reference to market price of water, and what is the ballpark figure for the current market price of water?
So if I went out on the market today and bought water, I would probably pay $550 to $600 an acre foot for a long-term storage credit. So if I'm willing to invest in working out a supply on the river, might be able to come in, I don't know, curiously around $550 an acre foot. So maybe,
Yeah, interestingly, there was a news item of CAP about they had the board approved recently a purchase of some long-term storage credits. And I specifically looked at the article because I wanted to know what the rate was. It was $400 an acre foot, which I thought sounded pretty good. And that was Tone Autumn. I think that was in the Tucson AMA.
Yeah, I was going to say
it was from
depend on the AMA.
Yeah, it depends on the AMA, because this was from the federal government, probably some of the Sawarsa effluent credits, so forth. But I don't want to distract us into the Tucson AMA. So Valerie Swick, whom I'm sure you know, asked if you could please explain what you are doing now related to Reclamation's Water Smart, Eli, and Maricopa Stanfield Basin study.
Great question, Valerie. So Pinal Partnership submitted for a Water Smart grant to look at the Maricopa Relay Basin and some of the challenges it has and the effects of climate change and water use on that basin. And Valerie, being with the Bureau of Reclamation, was a key part of making that happen. So the Pinal Partnership was the lead agency in that from our side. Past Mayor McFarland from Casa Grande and I were co-chairs. Later on, Jake joined in as one of the co-chairs of the Global, and we wrapped up that study. Several pieces of that study are some of the key components that have gone into our strategy for assured water supply programs. There's been several grants that have been issued for irrigation districts to build more water conservation irrigation systems, drip systems in the Maricopa Stanfield Basin. We've used the analysis in there to strategize on what our demands will look like going forward. That's part of the reason we have the conservation program. There was a whole matrix that was developed out of that for goals of, if you see a hotter and drier climate, which we believe we're entering, what are some of the things that are priorities that can be done to make water use more efficient? And that was really kind of almost the starting point of our conservation program, but also was part of the reason we decided not to do a statewide conservation program for all of our systems. We wanted to be community specific, because if we're going to truly achieve the water conservation goals that we need to achieve to be sustainable, the community has to buy into it. The community has to identify to it, and we have to get the community stakeholders to support it. And it's a lot easier to do that when they can relate to their program, their community, than some statement that they see in various communities. So I guess, Valerie, the core of a lot of things we're doing started from that basin study and the work that was done in that. I failed to mention that. That was a huge monumental task. I want to say a 4 or 5 year project. The time we got the grant to the time we were done. We had Indian communities that were involved. We had commercial industrial users that were involved. We had multiple cities, private water companies, irrigation districts. It was a huge group of folks that came together. And that was kind of the thought process when we created the Pinal Stakeholder Group, was the same thing. That team that did all that work on the basin study was so successful. If we can get a kind of a community-wide group together, that is how we're going to solve the water issues that we have in Pinal.
Yeah, when did that finally get released as a final study, the Eloy Maricopa?
About a year ago, I'd have to go back. I think about a year ago, we published the final study. We've gone through the various chapter reviews.
This is Valerie really quick. It is in the process. It is finished.
Okay.
We're finalizing it isn't officially published yet. So we have to go through the reclamation process to publish.
Yeah, and
But it
Valerie,
will
when
be
do you
published.
think that might happen? Do you have any guesstimate? I realize the government is closed sort of now, but reclamation maybe not. But do you have any guesstimate? There's a reason I'm asking. Do you have a guesstimate?
I'm hoping that it's hard to say, just because the West Valley took over a year.
Well,
we're hoping that we're in the process of updating everybody, and we hope within the next 6 months, maybe less.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is that we know it took a very long time for the Tucson, the Lower Santa Cruz Basin study to get released. But maybe if these all get released, we can have a webinar where we talk about these different basin studies and maybe some of the commonalities of actions and so forth. I think it'd be really interesting because, we lose track, even if we were trying to keep track of them, it gets hard because they fall off the radar for a while they're being approved. So the other thing is we're going to follow up with you, probably with Raluca, on some conservation things, basically related to a WIFA grant. We got very late in the process to do some conservation fact sheets. So we'll want to talk to you about that. But I did want to tie a question I had. By the way, you got lots of thanks. Charles Stack put in an article about dairies and so forth. And so I encourage people to save the chat from this, about this. And so we're almost out of time, but a question I had, and Fred, you and I sometimes touch base when you're putting in for a grant for some of the funds to upgrade. Often it's a water treatment plant for potable water. But I was curious if you could say anything about and briefly, because we're almost out of time, your effluent use plans and whether you're needing grants for that and what the outlook looks like for integrating effluent use into your assured water supply portfolio.
Well, I could probably spend 20 minutes giving updates on that. So
you have two.
Two primary areas. So we have a big focus down by the Douglas AMA in Bisbee. We're working with Freeport McMoran, working with the Cochise Conservation District, and working with the city of Bisbee to take their effluent that's currently being discharged. And we're going to be looking to acquire land and recharge the aquifer down there. Freeport McMoran is going to be one of our partners in that project. And then up in the Casa Grande area, we are partnering with the city of Casa Grande to provide wastewater service on the east side of I-10. And as part of our assured water supply program, all of the effluent that we've generated from that facility will be pledged back to our designation. So as Terri Sue mentioned, if an entity can bring in the effluent, that would be, roughly a third of their water demand. We're committing 100% of the water from effluent back to the ADOS and pledging it back to those users to start getting their water availability fees or their credits they need to bring to the table as low as we can to make sure that housing stays affordable and that we can sustain development, not just short term, but long term.
Well, that's great. We are out of time. I really want to thank you. You've presented a tremendous amount of information from some of the comments received and the questions. A lot of this is about things people don't know about or don't have the time to pay the attention to. I always have had a spot in my heart for Arizona Water Company, because when I was on the Corporation Commission, there was a rate case. And I just got to tell you, you know, we went into Sedona. That was the first time I met the president at the time, whose name escapes me at the moment. But he and his staff sat there with a big ledger of papers. I mean, everything was kept on ledger sheets with demand and everything. And so just think about what managing 24 systems would have been like 40 years ago. Anyway, you're really doing great work, and we thank you for taking the time to inform us. And I want to thank everybody for participating in today's webinar. So thank you, and I wish everybody a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.